Good evening, friends. You are most welcome to ThinkGuys channel. Today we are discussing the ARC report, Ethics in Governance. Our index is Introduction, first topic. Second is Ethical Framework. Third is Legal Framework for Fighting Corruption. Fourth is Institutional Framework. Fifth is Social Infrastructure. Sixth is Systematic Reforms. Seventh is Protecting the Honest Civil Servant. Eighth is international cooperation. Ninth is relationship between the political executive and civil services. Our first part is introduction. Ethics is a set of standards that society places on itself and which help guide behavior, choices, and actions. The standards do not, by themselves, ensure ethical behavior that requires a robust culture of integrity. The crux of ethical behavior does not lie in bold words and expressions enshrined as standards but in their adoption in actions, in sanctions against their violations, in putting in place competent disciplinary bodies to investigate allegations of violations and impose sanctions quickly, and in promoting a culture of integrity. Corruption is an important manifestation of the failure of ethics. The word corrupt is derived from the Latin word corruptus, 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 meaning to break or destroy. The word ethics is from the original Greek word ethikos, 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 meaning arising from habit. It is unfortunate that corruption has, for many, become a matter of habit, ranging from grand corruption involving persons in high places to retail corruption touching the every life of common people. Anti corruption interventions so far made are seen to be ineffectual, and there is widespread public cynicism, cynicism about them. Anti corruption intervenes so far made are seen to be ineffectual, and there is widespread public cynicism about them. The interventions are seen as mere posturing without any real intention to bring the corrupt to book. They are also seen as handy weapons for partisan political use to harass opponents. Corruption is so deeply entrenched in the systems that most people regard corruption as inevitable and any effort to fight it as futile. This cynicism, this cynicism is spreading so fast that it bodes ill for our democratic system itself. There are two somewhat contrary approaches in dealing with corruption and abuse of office. The first is overemphasis on value and character. Many people lament the decline in values and the consequent rise in the corruption. The implicit assumption is that until values are restored, nothing much can be done to improve the conduct of the human beings. The second approach is based on the belief that most human beings are fundamentally decent and socially conscious, but there is always a small proportion of people which cannot reconcile individual goals with the good of society. Such deviant people tend to pursue personal gain at the cost of public good, and the purpose of organized government is to punish such deviant behavior. If good behavior is consistently rewarded and bad behavior consistently punished, the bulk of the people follow the straight and narrow path. However, if good behavior is not only not rewarded but is actually fought with difficulties, and bad behaviors is not only not punished but is often extravagantly rewarded, then the bulk of the people tend to stray from the honorable path. In the real world, both values and institutions matter. Values are needed to serve as guiding stars. and they exist in abundance in our society. A sense of right and wrong is intrinsic to our culture and civilization, but values need to be sustained by institutions to be durable and to serve as an example to others. Values without institutional support will soon be weakened and dissipated. Institutions provide the container which gives shape and content to values. This is the basis of all statecrafts and laws and institutions. While incentives and institutions matter for all people, they are critical in dealing with the army of public servants, elected or appointed, endowed with authority to make decisions and impact on human lives and exercising the power to determine allocations of resources. Public office and control over public purse offer enormous temptation and opportunity to promote private gain at public cost. Therefore, creation of institutions and designing of incentives are of utmost importance in promoting ethical conduct in public servants. In our society, corruption and abuse of office has been aggravated by three factors. First, there is a colonial legacy of unchallenged authority and propensity to exercise power arbitrarily. In a society which worships power, it is easy for public officials to deviate from ethical conduct. Second, there is enormous asymmetry of power in our society. Nearly 90% of our people are in the unorganized sector. Quite a number of them lead a precarious existence depending on the subsistence wages with no job security, and nearly 70% of the organized workers with job security and regular monthly wage are employed by the state directly or through public sector undertakings. Almost all these employees are educated in a largely illiterate and semi literate society, and economically, even the lowliest of public servants are better off than most people in the country. What is more, their employment in government comes with all the trappings of power. Such asymmetry of power reduces societal pressure to conform to ethical behavior and makes it easy to indulge in corruption. Third, as a conscience or as a conscious choice, the Indian state in the early decades after independence closed a set of policies whose unintended consequence was to put the citizen at the mercy of the state. Over regulation, severe restrictions on economic activity, excessive state control, near monopoly of the government in many sectors, and an economy of scarcity all created conditions conducive to unbridled corruption. In addition, many states subsidize and beneficiary oriented programs in a situation of asymmetry of power converted the public servant into patron and master and reduced most citizens into mendicants. This at once enhanced opportunities to indulge in corruption and reduced the citizens' capacity to resist extortionary demands. The experience of the past 6 decades in our country and elsewhere offers us valuable lessons in curbing corruption. It is generally recognized that monopoly and discretion increase the propensity to corruption while competition and transparency reduce corruption. This has been dramatically witnessed in India in the wake of economic liberalization. As competition came in and choice expanded, corruption plummeted. Plummeted. Telephones, steel, cement, sugar, and even two-wheelers are among the many sectors which have seen enhanced supply and choice, reducing or even eliminating corruption. Similarly, wherever technology and transparency have been introduced, corruption has been significantly contained. Computerization and access to information have made many services, from railway reservation to issuing of driving license, increasingly free from corruption. A factor which increases corruption is over centralization. The more remotely power is exercised from the people, the greater is the distance between authority and accountability. The larger number of the functionaries between the citizen and the final decision makers make accountability diffused, and the temptation to abuse authority is strong. For a large democracy, India probably has the smallest number of final decision makers. Local government is not allowed to take root, and power has been concentrated both horizontally and vertically in a few hands. The net results are weakened citizenry and mounting corruption. It is well recognized that every democracy requires the empowerment of citizens in order to hold those in authority to account. Right to information, effective citizens' charter, opportunity and incentives to promote proactive approaches of citizens, stakeholders' involvement in delivery of public services, public consultations in the decision making, and social auditing are some of the instruments of accountability that dramatically curbed corruption and promoted integrity and quality of decision making. Therefore, enforcement of rule of law and deterrent punishment against corruption are critical to build an ethically sound society. Perhaps the most important